Good morning, everyone. A very warm welcome to today's webinar, brought to you by H&V News and sponsored by Altecnic. We're delighted to have you with us for what promises to be a very insightful and increasingly topical session. Today we'll be taking a closer look at one of the most important aspects of system performance and longevity, water treatment. Specifically, we'll be exploring the VDI 2035 standard and the growing movement towards a chemical-free water approach to water treatment in closed-loop heating systems. The session will run for around 60 minutes, including time at the end for your questions. So please do submit any questions or queries in the Q&A box as we go along. We'll aim to cover as many as we possibly can in the discussion, but the session will be recorded and hosted on our platform, so you'll have access to the sessions if you need to leave at any point. Our sponsor today for today's session is Altecnic, who've been at the forefront of innovation in this area. So they'll help us unpack what the standard means in practice, how it compares with traditional approaches, and what engineers, installers, and facilities managers need to consider when specifying or maintaining the systems under these guidelines. So with that, let's get started. It's my pleasure to hand you over to Ed Morris, who's the Technical Manager at Altecnic. Ed?
Ella, thank you very much, and good morning, everybody, and thank you for joining this session this morning. We realise it's quite a hot topic at the moment. We've got two fantastic guests alongside me today. I'll introduce those, but I'll let these guys give themselves a bit of an introduction as to who they are and what their backgrounds are. So first with myself, my name is Ed Morris. I'm Technical Manager at Altecnic. My role in the business is to look after a majority of the products, all the products that we put into the marketplace. And I think why it's important for us to dive into this of chemical or chemical-free is just the impact it has on some of the components that we make. So we have to work quite closely with different parts of the industry to understand how it impacts on the product that we put into the marketplace. So from our aspect, it's very important. I know there's a lot of talk around it at the moment. So first of all, Ricky Prescott from Thoroflush. Just want to introduce yourself, Rick.
How are you doing? Yeah, like I say, I'm Ricky. I owner of Thoroflush. So we put some products on the market back in 2020 when I invented a product for cleaning heating systems. I was personally an engineer, and then invented something, and then not long after I went to market, I got introduced to a German company, and we started promoting VDI 2035. I heard a lot about it in like 16, 17 on the social media, and never really took much interest in it. Then as Thoroflush established, it kind of works side by side with the product, and we've been selling that stuff for 5.5 years now on the internet, and we've just been helping engineers with the problems they've got with systems. And since I'd say the past 3-4 years, it's just growing and growing every day now. It's engineers are going better with design systems. They're not just putting boilers in anymore. They're actually, the one-man bands are taking more interest in bigger systems, the failures that you're having before. So yeah, we just help them out. We supply the products. We help them day by day with the problems they have doing it. We see all the problems with chemicals and things like that. So yeah, that's what we do.
Awesome, thank you, Rick. I know we'll dive a little bit more into that as we go through the webinar. And also we've got Mark Andrews. Mark has got a couple of hats on. As you can see, he's live today from his van on a live call out. Bless him, he's had a morning of it already, so we have to be conscious of that. So, Mark, just want to introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm Mark Andrews. I currently live in West Yorkshire, and I run a small plumbing and heating company. And we cover a lot of aspects across the industry, but a lot of us work is top class or a better quality of clientele in the residential sector. And I've not had an awful lot of experience with the VDI 2035, but what I will say is since talking to these guys, I've actually got very interested in it, and it just makes logical sense, really. So I'm here as well today to find as much out as I possibly can. I'm also currently national president of the APHC. You'll probably see the badge we've got there, and that is one of the reasons why I've been privileged and invited to come and join all of you guys today.
Fantastic. Thanks, Mark. Because I say you are on a live call, so you may get an apprentice come into the van or a traffic warden or somebody may come knocking on the window. So I say we are live. There's no airs and graces around this. So yeah, we're prepared for everything this morning. I think it's not a Monday, which is always a positive. You know, we've passed Monday, we're on to Tuesday. So fingers crossed it goes extremely well. So as we spoke about, we want to talk about this sort of transitional, this movement towards chemical free. It was something that we did installer show this year. Ricky was also on that panel as well, and we understand there's a lot of talk around it at the moment. Say from a manufacturer's perspective, we have a vested interest because we have to understand the medium makeup or the makeup of the medium that's going through the systems, whether it be chemical or chemical free, and the impact it has for us as a manufacturer on the different components, whether it be plastics, rubbers, metals. You know, it's really, really important. So we have to understand that. But I think from an industry, you know, we are seeing a change. We're seeing a lot more talk around now. We're seeing a lot more product on the market, which is VDI compliant. So we'll try and cover through some of that today. We're going to look at some of the regulations, the industry standards and stuff. And, you know, I know that some of the guys know Mark is there's a lot of domestic stuff, but I think sort of the domestic and commercial markets sort of work hand in hand. We tend to see what, you know, what flows through from a domestic level can drop into commercial. So, you know, we'll sort of go hand in hand here. So first of all, I think it's important that we understand the foundations of where we're going and what we're looking at and you know, what regulations are around. So Ricky, maybe from your perspective, you know, we've got BG50, we've got different things like that, but you know, where do you see the current state of the market, whether it be commercial, whether it be domestic, you know, where do we see we are with that? Are we ready for it? Is there implementation already there? Are we still lagging behind when it comes to chemical free? Is it still biased towards chemical? What's your take on that?
Me personally, I think we're still massively lagging behind just because of the British standard is, I would say, an outdated document. There's not much really about water quality in it. I think it mentions one parameter. So when you start looking, go from domestic, look at commercial documents like the BG50 has had a bit about VDI and the process is put in it. Not much though. There's a lot of chemicals. It's just a small 1 or 2 pages maybe. So, but obviously that document's probably sponsored by a chemical company. So,
well, I've actually got a breakdown here of BG50 when it covers. So it's risk assessments, it's water chemistry, control parameters, sampling monitoring, chemical treatment, operation controls, sampling points, record keeping, and role responsibilities.
It's a great document because it just opens your eyes. It talks about all the different chemical components that go into inhibitors, corrosion, and it's 120 odd pages, I think.
Yeah.
Whereas our British standard is, I think it says that the only water parameter in there is hard water is over 200 parts per million, and it doesn't say anything about the components in water, what the problems cause, things like that. So
yeah. And from your aspect, Mark, what is your as a you know an owner of a business that runs a, you know, albeit maybe on a domestic focus, what's your understanding of chemicals and chemical free? Is the standards that you work to, is it something that you know that you adhere to, or is it still quite a, I hate to use the term murky water because there's no pun intended, but is it easy for engineers to follow that? Or
I think it is to a certain degree. Like I said earlier into my introduction, I haven't really had an awful lot with the VDI, but I think we've always just gone along the lines of putting chemicals in because that is something that's always just been done. And I think it's just become a standard practice for a lot of people. But we go to an awful lot of systems where it hasn't the criteria and the instructions for dosing hasn't been followed, and you tend to find that it doesn't really work, and it isn't effective purely and simply because people just or installers just don't actually do what they should be doing. And I'm not saying that every installer out there, and I'm not saying anybody that's on this webinar, because I think if you've come on this webinar this morning, you've obviously got something about you to attend to this. But there is a lot of the trade that will just dose because, oh well, yeah, we put a bit of cleaner in it, we give it a run, drain it, put some chemical in, there you go, and they move on. And from what I've read and what I've understood this last week or so, since talking to you guys a week ago, I think that this is going to this should be the standard, and this should be the benchmark for us to move on and improve from. But I don't believe chemicals work 100%, and I know from a lot of systems I've gone to that systems have been overdosed, and that's even worse than not dosing it at all sometimes. So
Yeah,
I think that's where we are in the industry. Really, you've got some people that will just put chemical in and only, and they're never ever going to change. But then, we really need the vast majority to pull the others up and pull the others in line, and that's where we've got to unify across the industry, isn't it?
yeah. I think one of the big battles, and I think Rick, you touched on it. What you said is confliction and confliction in standards. We see it a lot, not necessarily just in treatment, but in a lot of things that we do within our industry is confliction. So you look at things like Part L. Part L will state something, but then a best practice will state something else. Do you know what I mean? And as an industry, how do we overcome that confliction? Because it's almost holding us back. We're trying to be innovative in what we're doing, whether it's using chemicals, whether it's chemical free, whatever else it is. But our own red tape seems to hold us back. Does that make sense?
It's a difficult one, isn't it? Because when you look at the Part L, it refers to the British standard, and then the British standard. The problem is that how I see it, there's no like the VDI 2035's engineers, scientists, all thousands of them all together, and it's not just the VDI is like a British standard, but over in Germany, there's all different standards throughout the whole industries. But what we have is people writing the documents who have got too much vested interest, and should I be saying this? They've too much vested interest in a product.
Yeah.
We should be helping the end users out, maybe get a load of engineers together and make a different standard.
Yeah, I think we're very good in this country, no matter what it is, of being stuck in our ways. We do a lot of talks about gas boiler versus heat pump installs, and one of the things that comes to that is a gas pump install now is like rule of thumb. Do you know what I mean? You know pretty much what you're going to do, so we do, and we don't move away from that. Whereas, it's kind of, I suppose, with chemicals is the same. We've always used it. We do what we think is right, and we move on. And I think the one thing that certainly I've learned is that any kind of treatment, whether it be chemical or chemical free, is a moment in time. Do you know what I mean? We can look at a system, we can look at water system or system water at one point. A week later, it's completely different. And it becomes a science. You said before, the scientists that look at this, we're engineers, we're pipe fitters, we're plumbers, do you know what I mean? And we're installers. And, it is becoming a science. Does that make sense? There's some real intricacies which come part of this. And it's where we understand where that goes from as well.
But when you go to commercial, you've probably got your engineers go out and do the pipe fitting, then you've got your commissioning, then there's the water quality experts when you look at it. But has it been done in the past? It's failure gets the call out, doesn't it? When something goes tits up, that's when the call. But if you can monitor a system, go out there, get it monitored, online monitoring these days. But domestically, it's hard. You can't sell these products, can you, to monitor a system?
No, it's really difficult. But from like, challenges and maintenance, compliance, life cycle testing, I guess, VDI has been around for a number of years, in the German market and in some of the European, certainly in Central Europe. Are we ready in this country, do you think, to solely, not solely take on, but to invest in longevity in VDI? Do you think it's there for us to be able to do it, or do we not understand it fully yet, do you think?
There's companies out there that understand it, and that is the problem, isn't it? It's lack of knowledge in that department, really. But to me, VDI is not just about the water, it's about system design as well. And you probably see catastrophic failures from the wrong components fitted in the wrong locations. And everyone thinks, oh, it's this magic water that gets put in a system. It's not that. It talks about expansion. There's other documents to support VDI.
Yeah.
So when you go, you'll get away with it in domestic, just putting possibly tap water or resin treated water in.
Yeah.
If you get your expansion right, the size, service, put it in the right location, you should be fine. But when you go into commercial settings, you've got to make sure everything's right, your parameters are right, it's monitored constantly.
Yeah. And I think you've made a really good point there, and I don't want to focus too much on training at the moment because I want to move on to the skills factor, further through the webinar. But Mark, from your perspective, if you were customers to contact you tomorrow and say, right, we want to install a system that is completely chemical free, can you help us? Where would you feel comfortable? What would your response to that be at this moment in time? Running a small business and someone wanting to make that move. Are you ready for it yet? Or as you've said, you've only really started looking into it recently. Would you be comfortable in taking on a project, or would you want to know more about it?
I would be very comfortable taking it on. I think there's a couple of key issues here. One, we've got to educate the customer, so the customer asks for this.
Mm-hmm.
Now, at the moment, if I was to go to any one of my customers and I mentioned VDI 2035, they'd look at me gone out, and I would have to explain to them and explain the virtues of what I am trying to establish and what I'm trying to achieve. And that's the first key issue. The second key issue is, am I the only person that they've contacted? In a lot of cases it is, because I've got a good repeat clientele. But in certain markets you'll go, and for me to turn around and say, yes, I want to do this, and they'll say, well, Mr. Smith down the road has said that we only need to do that. And this is what we're up against. You've got fragmentation of the industry. We either all sing from the same song sheet, or we're not going to achieve anything. And I'm not being negative here at all. I will embrace this, and I will look into this and seriously try to promote it, because we have some larger properties that really will probably benefit from this, rather than putting 5, 10, 15 litres of fluid in. But it's getting the message across, and it's actually having the customer understand, one, what they're asking for, and two, what they're prepared, or what the benefits of it in the future.
Okay. On the flip side of that question, so and this can go for commercial or domestic. I have a commercial background. That's my background. I was a commercial installer by trade. But do you ever get a customer come to you and say, right, I want XXX chemical in my system, or do they just presume that you are going to protect the system in the way that you know best? And one of the things you said about putting 5, 10, 15 litres, it could be that you need 14.6 litres, or you need 12.3 litres. And how far on the exact sciences are we with chemicals, or are we still working off that rule of thumb? And are we still traditional? Like I say, is it down to you to say, well, okay, I'm not going to put chemicals in this time, I'm going to do chemical free? Would they know the difference?
No, I don't believe they would. A lot of my quotations, estimates, proposals for work are all based on what I will explain in detail about what we're going to do and how we're going to achieve it. And I've never had anyone say, I want this chemical in my system.
They just presume that you're
I've had customers come to me and name a brand and just say, you are going to put X in, aren't you? And I go, yeah, of course we will. If that's the product you want, we prefer F, but and we've gone from that. But again, I think if we invest and go down the route of doing the VDI, then we can turn up and we say, well, right, when we've installed the system and we've commissioned it and flushed it and everything else, we're going to fill it with treated water, and it'll be to this standard. And you know, and that can only be to the good, can't it? But to answer your original question very shortly, no, I've never had somebody stand there and stamp their feet and say, I want this.
Yeah. Okay. Which I suppose is where we see a difference, and Rick, you may or may not see this, that from a commercial aspect, chemical or chemical free will be designed into the system at consultation stage. So the consultant will go through, they will design a system which is either going to comply to a chemical standard or a chemical inhibitor, or it's going to comply to a chemical free. So I suppose that's where the difference. And a question, Rick, for you, and I'm not saying you know the answer, I'm just trying to put it out there, is we often talk about commercial and domestic, and absolutely they're light years apart when it comes to size of system, design, absolutely that. But let's take on, for instance, something like a heat network, okay, where you've got CP1, which talks about chemical-free treatment for the district heating side of it, okay. So we've got the large scale district heating side, but on the flip side of that, we've got a massive domestic system as well. Okay, I know we've got a large amount of multiple domestic systems because we have, one district heat network could feed 600 flats. They've just got a HOU on the wall. Are we ready? Is the industry ready to be able to make those 600 individual flats chemically free treated as well? Because they'll be treated in two different ways. Because the big district heating will be a closed system. We've got the smaller system within the house.
So they're just like HIUs in each.
So it's only the same as a normal domestic market. But what is the difference between obviously the bigger system, but then implement it on 600 individual flats?
I suppose it's whoever's designing the flats, are they both working together with the network provider?
Yeah, well, it's difficult because the network is
the homeowner as well, isn't it?
They're hydraulically separated. You will buy, and this again, I suppose, is where, because some will turn around to me and say, I follow BS 759 through on the domestic side, and they put, I don't know, a cap and a half of inhibitor and something else into the system. Do you know what I mean? But are we ready to make that large scale transition? Marcus talked about an individual customer where we're going to take one person or one install, but on a mass scale. So 600 developments and this hasn't just got to be HOUs, could be multi-use, multi-occupancy that's got gas nets, wherever it may be.
Yeah.
Are we ready? Is it ready? Is it possible to go and do all those 600 chemical free?
Not sure about individual properties, because who's doing the maintenance on them? Who owns them? If it's owned by a developer or a landlord, they're responsible for the maintenance.
Yeah.
If it's 600 individual homes, people don't even get the boiler serviced. So, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But if whoever's supplying those 600 home, I would say, has an obligation to provide heat constantly to those 600. Yeah. If that goes down from failure for some reason, something's gone seriously wrong. And
I suppose there you've kind of highlighted, which is fantastic, is that it's the ongoing system maintenance, because we're very, like you said, we're very lazy at doing that ourselves. Whether it be at the minute I'm having some work done, we're renovating our house. I've had the guys who are looking after my heating system have been out 4 or 5 times to do different bits of the system. But I also know for a fact that not once have they added an inhibitor back into the system. So the system's been drained down 4 times in the last 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Nothing gone back into it. Do you know what I mean? And I'm sitting there now thinking, well, what's going to happen to my system? So it's kind of like, I suppose, from that aspect, okay, let me take it all back. What is the process for filling a system chemically free?
The process starts with monitoring the incoming mains. So some parts of the country you can fill with tap water. So test your water, make sure it's in the right parameters, fill with it. Or if it's scale's too high, conductivity is too high, and you want to reduce it into the low saline range of the VDI 2035, you've then got to put it through a resin filling unit, doing like ion exchange.
Yeah.
Not just any ion exchange. So a lot of people are trying to get cheaper resins and things like that. Some don't exchange the right salt, so you've just got to be careful.
Yeah.
So then fill the system and monitor it, and that's where I'd still struggle with a lot of my customers today, is getting them to monitor it. I get people buying kit that have still not got a test kit, and I say you're doing it wrong, because you need to monitor it. Monitor the system at commissioning time, maybe a few days after when you've been back, just check the water's in the right quality, and then constantly every year thereafter. And it's all about logging the data, really.
And that's no different to chemicals, is it, as well? Because they should, but there is no...
Section 10 of the British Standard says that after you've added any additive to a heating system, you need commissioning. You need to test it for its like dose rate.
Yeah. But people
It's
don't know what that is, do they? People don't know what the rates are. They don't know
Well,
what.
if you ask me, you put a biocide in a heating system, it's a non-compliant product because there's nothing in part in the British on a biocide that says how to test for it, but the
Yeah.
British standard says to test for it, and that's the great thing about the European standard. You know what you're testing for, so you're testing
Yeah.
for conductivity, pH. You can test for iron and hardness,
Yeah.
things
And
like that.
I guess on larger systems, well, I've seen them sometimes. I've seen water monitoring stations on larger systems. So they can almost check the water as it's flowing through the pipes, can't they? Do you know what I mean? There are
Yeah,
systems.
you get the online monitoring devices now that send alerts and things, and it's great, but it's an expensive thing. But
Of course.
you probably see assets worth mega thousands, don't you?
Like you wouldn't believe. We're dealing with the site at the moment actually where they've had some failures. One site, a specific area of the site, and we're trying to get through it, and it's going down to scientific level to try and understand the root
What's
of
going
failure.
on?
We've paid thousands of pounds for analysis on rubber components. Clef, you've done it as well, and this is the real world understanding of what it is, and everything that the customer contractor has used is okay. It's all certified and everything, but something somewhere has attacked some of our product. Do you know what I mean? And we've got to understand. But
Yeah, but you've got to look at the levels of certification, haven't you? A lot of our inhibitors are put in a glass jar for about 270 hours. They're not put in a metal heating system with all different heat temperatures and
they're
high
very well
flow rates
passive, aren't
and
they?
things. Things
Yeah,
change.
and Mark, just listening to what Rick has said there, from practical implication, though, you've said absolutely you would look at going down the route of doing chemical free. Would you then be prepared? Would you put into your quotation that you would then go back on a yearly basis to test the water? Is it something that you would take on as a business, absorb the cost to try and promote it? How would you then, look at it moving forward from an aspect of maintenance and making sure the system is still running well and compliant?
Predominantly, we are a service and repair company, and we will do installation work for people, but it's basically on the basis that I'm gaining a long-term client.
Yeah.
I certainly don't do installation work and walk away and never want to see it again.
Yeah.
So the understanding I have with my customers is the fact that we will be coming back and we will be maintaining the system. Otherwise, I say we'll find somebody else then, because and we actually do service care plans. So people pay a monthly fee, and then every year we go back and we service the system. So yes, I would certainly get into servicing and monitoring the system and testing. And when we clean filters out, we drop the water, clean the filter out, and then we look at the condition of the water anyway and test for it. Mm-hmm. So, and we've gone for pH levels and that, and tested for whatever. And we've dosed, accordingly again if it falls short. But me personally, I like the idea of the chemical free because I think it's probably more sustainable in the long run.
Yeah, I mean, when we look at things like efficiency and sustainability, it's a big thing that everyone's talking about now. I guess that's something that we have to, as an industry, we have to understand the implications and the impacts on what we put into this system, because at some point we have to drop a system, whether we like it or not. We have to drain systems down. I was on a site yesterday where they had some issues with the main, that to drain 26 floors worth of a 4-inch riser main because that admission there's no isolation. That water just gets dumped. Do you know what I mean? They don't recycle it. So from an environmental perspective and from from that impact from where we are, which is going to be the better option? Are we dropping a slightly chemically changed water into, or are we going to drop chemicals back into the environment? I suppose it's something to consider as well, isn't it? When
I say to a lot of my smaller customers, there's one last week on Instagram, and you'd have to go back out and change a radiator valve. I think I just said to him, why not keep that water, put it in a tank in the garden, drain it, put the new radiator valve on, and then pump it back in if you can.
Yeah.
Commercially, it's obviously not viable.
Yeah.
because there's huge volumes of water.
Yeah.
But domestically, like you speak to people about glycols, they're dumping glycol on people's gardens, then putting other stuff in. They don't know so they're mixing two glycols. No, the industry has very little knowledge in water treatment from the buy and what they're putting in.
And the thing is, I think we have some really good water chemical experts in this country. I've used them in this role and previous roles and worked for pipe manufacturers. There are some real people who understand the science of water, how it works, how it impacts. But I think sometimes some of this confliction in standards are the issue, because like you say, it's not my place to say, it's difficult for us as a company because we have a range of chemicals, but we have a range of products that sit in chemical free as well. So it's one of those. But I do understand what you're saying about the confliction. It's probably what's holding us back again at the minute is having this confliction in standards. And is there something in place about disposing of treated water, whether it be chemical or chemical free? Do you know what I mean? I don't know. Are we just wrongly dumping huge amounts of biocides and inhibitors down the drain? And
I think commercially you've got to get a discharge license, haven't you, to dump it in case you overwhelm the network.
Yeah.
But domestically it just goes down the drain, doesn't it?
Which is mad. And one of the other points which we haven't touched on yet, which I think is really important, is the pre-commission of systems, so pre-commissioning and flushing. Rick, I wasn't leading you into that, but I mean, something like BG29, where you talk about pre-commission, where you talk about flushing systems. From your experience in what you do and what the point you've got today, how important is it to clean and flush systems prior to them going online? I know the answer because I've seen it firsthand, but
that's what I always say. The key to a longevity system is flushing it.
Yeah, and flushing it properly as well.
Flushing it properly, getting it clean in the first place.
And for people who may not understand, or what is it you're actually flushing the system for? What are we trying to flush?
Remove the debris, really. Any contaminants that are in there. Because the problem is now, like I say, I'm mainly domestic, don't really deal with commercial. But everyone's putting all these products on pipes, pastes, and hemp, like not the hemp, the tape rings and things, and it's all getting into valves. And I've been there and done it, Ed, and years ago, and that's why the Thorough Flush guy invented that product. And you do all these things, winding PTFE on, and you've got to get them out, and you've just got to get them up and clean in the first place.
And all those contaminants have issues moving forward with all sorts of different things. When you're looking at things like biological growth, the control of biocides, all that kind of stuff left in the system creates huge amount of problems. Whether it's blocking filters or wherever it may be, they all become nutrient sources for for different types of germs and stuff to start growing on. It's awful. And
especially when we're installing heat systems in the summer, because you fire it up, you commission it, and then it probably gets left for weeks, maybe months, and not even be on a hot water cycle. So the water stays in the radiators; it's not getting turned over. So obviously your biological growth can occur on.
And from your perspective, Mark, what's your regime for for new systems? I know you say you do a lot of service and maintenance, but if you were to go out and service the system, you have to drop it. Would you flush it and then refill it, or do you, what's your system work of doing stuff like that?
I try to drain as little as possible whenever we do any work. We've always used freezing machines before now. But if we've to drain an entire system, then we usually fill it, and we'll just do a hot and cold flush with water beforehand. I try to use as little chemical as possible, for more as an environmental issue than anything else. To touch on something you just said now about new installations, I get the fact that there's Loctite 55 and PTFE and all that can get into the system, and I'm forever telling the lads not to overdress a screwed thread, due to the fact that a lot of the excess will just end up inside. But I also think the industry is actually moving more towards a chemical-free installation anyway, in the sense that we're now crimping a lot of fittings. And I see a lot of installations now where everything's crimped or it's push fit. And I'm not a particular lover of push fit, but it is helping in the sense that you're not introducing fluxes and pastes and and one thing or another into the system, which really does help. But yeah, if we leave to drain a system, we usually refill it, flush it, and then refill again. And if we just then add the corrosion proof as per the literage. So
yeah. Yeah, and like you say, it's difficult because you've got, commercial and domestic are two completely different systems, but still with the same principles. It really is the same. We just do it on a larger scale, don't we, when it comes to commercial.
yeah,
One of the things which I think is a really hot topic, and one of the things which I'm quite passionate about is skills focus and skills gaps, and trying to educate the market. And Rick, I'll go back to you on this one first, because I know you're quite passionate about this, and obviously, I see some of the stuff and the conversations that you get into on things like LinkedIn and stuff. But let's talk about skills folk, and let's talk about from a chemical perspective first. Do we, or is the industry on top of control of chemicals in systems?
No. No, I call it the one bottle theory. We're still educated to put one bottle in a system that does 10 radiators, whether they be 10 little radiators, 10 massive radiators.
Yeah.
And it does say 100 litres, so there is the fact that the engineer should know how many litres is in a system. But when you do speak to a lot of the engineers out there, they're just generally doing plumbing, fitting boilers. They don't really know what's in a radiator. They don't know how many litres is in a piece of a length of 15, 22 mil pipe. So
Yeah.
the one bottle theory has been adopted for many, many years. So you put the bottle in, you put the sticker, hopefully put the sticker on the boiler. And that's another big thing, is put the actual brand on the boiler or the appliance, what chemicals in it, because a lot of people are just mixing. Like the local area I live in, we've got two big merchants that are selling an inhibitor that doesn't use molybdate, and that's the cheapest inhibitor, so that's the one that's mainly gone off the shelf, so it's getting used more.
Yeah.
And then we're just mixing chemicals. We don't have the education. Definitely don't have the education on what we're doing, what we're testing for, what we're mixing, why we shouldn't be mixing them.
Yeah. So if we're not fully in control of what should be easy with dosing a chemical system, is the skills gap too large to roll out chemical free on a large scale, or is it down to us as industry and people who have already worked on VDI to share their knowledge? I've done some great webinars and podcasts with people like Chris Valley, who love VDI, who's been a big installer of VDI systems for many times.
I think VDI 2035 method, the people have got to be passionate about it.
Yeah.
And take control of what they're doing. Like some of the lads that know, the guys that are doing the heat pumps now, they're passionate about the job, but we've got to remember there's the normal side of the market.
Yeah.
So I think people do need to be in control of it, and it's a little bit to learn. Everyone gets scared about it when if they pick up the VDI 2035 document.
Yeah.
But I think general water testing, bit of investment to get the kit, I can share my knowledge with them. It's not too much of a.
But you say they get, that it's a bit daunting when you pick up the new document VDI, but surely if you're to pick up a document that was with regards to chemical dosing would just be just as as daunting. But I suppose we just don't pick it up because we think we know, don't we?
Yeah, if you pick any document up, it's all a new change, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I think the VDI is a complex document, but I think we just need to keep it basic. And even what I see in commercial with one of my partners, they're doing big systems. They've just won an award for a big network up in Scotland.
Mm-hmm.
It's not brain science. It's just the little things. Then it all comes down to monitoring again, really.
Yeah. And from your aspect, Mark, as a business owner and running a team of engineers, what would your take on the skills gap be? Would you be prepared to invest time and potentially some kind of upfront cost to train yourself and your employees to understand and implement chemical free? Is it something that you'd look at doing to move forward?
Yes, it would be, in a nutshell. Yeah. Very much so. I've got a little bit of a conflict of interest here, in the sense that I'm also associated with BPEC, and I strongly push apprenticeships and training. So I'm very much focused on training and upskilling. And but yeah, we take the time, and we take the time to send the lads on refresher courses and training courses. So yeah, it is something I would do, very much so.
Yeah, and so we know there's a gap, and it is a science. Mark, we've both said this before, and the risk, we like to say, is there's a lot to take on, and it can be quite daunting. But there are companies out there that are already doing it. I know of a handful of companies that are already implementing VDI and using VDI systems. But what do you see at the moment? I think I know what mine are, but what do you see the barriers to adoption? What's the resistance at the moment? Is it legislation? Is it confliction in standards, whether it be guidance or best practices or British standards? Where do we see the biggest resistance coming from at present?
I think it's the standards really, because everyone's gets told it's like you've got to adhere to Part L, which is just another guidance document. So I presume you can follow any standard to go to Part L, but it does say about following the British standard. But then you've got to then look at manufacturers' documents, and a lot of them state to follow VDI 2035 chemical-free water treatment.
Yeah.
So it is
Which
there.
again, which again adds more confliction again, doesn't it?
It does, doesn't it? Because you've got more components than just the heat source in the system.
Yeah.
So that's the hard thing. I get asked a lot of questions saying, "Oh, but the pump wants this," and valves to say we can use that. And I spoke to a lot of manufacturers over the years, and there's not many know about water quality. They cannot tell you a parameter in the system. So radiator manufacturer, they just say, "Oh, it's British standard." Well, what's British standard? Because there's nothing about
Yeah.
water in it. So
And I
I
think,
think the industry is changing. They're all listening. They're all learning.
yeah,
And it's going to
yeah,
be, it's slow. Like I say, I've been providing this kit for coming on 6 years now, and it's a slow burn.
yeah,
But
yeah.
my customers see the benefits of it year on year, going back service and after service with just the quality components.
Yeah, and I think certainly from our perspective as a manufacturer, we make some valves that have got some real intricacies and some real delicate components which sit within them, and we have to be really careful in the mediums that flow through these systems because they have to be able to, we have to be able to withstand that, and because it's constantly changing, we have to constantly stay on our toes, and I suppose we kind of got to a level with chemical dosing where we had a certain amount of resilience against certain things, but even the chemical world was changing. The low temperature systems, all that kind of stuff, where people using different kinds of biocides, inhibitors, was huge for us. And luckily, being a European manufacturer, we manufacture in Italy. One of our biggest markets is into the likes of Germany, Holland, Belgium. So we already have the understanding of the chemical-free side, which we can implement over here, whether it's things like low lead or whatever it may be. Metal content isn't normally too bad, but the rubbers and the plastics are a real problem for us. So I think it's a constant learning curve for us as a manufacturer also to understand, for as much as it is you guys, Mark installing it and you with your side of it, we have to understand it as well and understand the implications of making that change because it's just as important for us. And that goes for any manufacturer, whether it be boilers, HIUs, valves, vessels, the bladders and the diaphragms in vessels. It's a massive thing to undertake, isn't it? And make that transition, I guess.
Oh yeah, it's the knowledge, isn't it? Like the VDI is all about the components there.
And I think that's where one of the biggest concerns with some of the, maybe say with some of the Far Eastern products, that they may not necessarily understand what they're going into, and it could end up causing more problems than they fix by putting, stuff that they're not used to using the VDI systems.
Yeah.
Or even chemical systems. It's difficult really, but I suppose the role of manufacturers and Mark, it's probably a question for you for trade associations as well and support networks out there. What's the importance of our role? Okay, ours as a manufacturer, say we do chemical and chemical free. So I'm not sitting here saying the chemicals are the devil because we have both and we see benefits for both. But Mark, from your perspective, the role of something like the APHC and BPEC, some of the places that you work with, what is our role as manufacturers and as trade sessions to support the industry? What do we do moving forward?
Well, I think again, it's the ability, or it's down to the manufacturers to support training and education in the industry. And if you guys or any manufacturer can offer training courses and when I say a training course, I don't mean a product awareness course. I have been on so many training courses where I've wanted to go and find out about how a product works and what it's about, and it's been a sales pitch, morning to evening, and you get fed up of that because I already know about the product. That's why I'm there. I actually want to find out what's inside the box and how it works. And I think the quality of training from manufacturers needs to be improved across the board. I'm not just talking about valves, controls, and right across the industry. Also, I think creating a market for the industry to go after will be key, because it's okay us now talking here about VDI 2035 and saying this is the way forward. Yes, it is the way forward. It is the future, and it will improve the industry. And in doing so, we'll get greater respect from customers, because at the moment there's a lot of customers out there that don't respect the industry. But how can you expect the industry not to go after this unless there's a market to go after? So it comes down to the manufacturer again to create a market for the industry to go after, and then we'll take on board a product, or we'll take on board a service. With regards to training, again, there needs to be support at school leaver level, right through apprenticeships, and then upskilling and refresher courses, and this should be a thing. But I'm now getting into other things here, and I don't want to go down that route because today.
Please don't, because we're coming towards the end now. I ain't got much to. Ella will be shouting at me the other end.
But that's where we are. I think the manufacturer's got a responsibility to educate and train the industry, as well as create a market for the product that they're producing and wanting to sell. So,
okay. So one final little bit, and Rick, I suppose with your, I'm only asking it because you've got a little bit or some experience in it, is how do we ensure that the installer has got confidence, but also that we get client buy-in from this?
Sorry.
So how do we ensure that the installers have got confidence to use it, but also get client buy-in? How do we? Is it education again? Is it about the benefit?
Yeah, it's training, isn't it? Again, so I say to people, if you buy the product from myself personally, I'm always on the end of the phone. I can pick it up. I know heating systems. I do a little bit on the tills, so still expanding my knowledge into like heat pump. I just fitted a heat pump in mine just so I can monitor the water, really, just see where it's going on. But it's closing that skills gap, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think what Mark said is really right. In there's levels of training. I do a lot of training. Rick, I know it's something that you and I spoke about, something that you're really moving into, and I'm really passionate about training. I came through the apprenticeship scheme. It changed my life. Having an apprenticeship was fantastic, and I'm really passionate about training. We've just built a dedicated training centre here at our new premises where engineers can get hands on. So we've got a wet room where there's water flowing, there's valves, they can play with everything. We've got cutaways, and I think it's really important. I don't learn by being given a book and sitting watching PowerPoint. It's just not right. Some people do, but we want to give it the best of both worlds. And I suppose this is where something like where chemical and chemical free, we could do something where people could physically see, how it's done, how it works.
That's what I've always said is training. Because I'm the same. If I went and just sat at a screen like in front of me, I'd be just like 12. My head's gone. I go home at 4 and I'm like, what have I just learned? But if you can put a test kit in front of someone's hand, say to them, bring some of your own system water, we can do a few tests, the do's and don'ts of using resin. It kind of sinks in then.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing with the industry, isn't it? We're a tactile creature, and we always have been. You're in this industry because you want to work with your hands.
Yeah.
Feel things in your hands. If you wanted to be academic, you'd be sat behind a desk, wouldn't you? But no, we all want to spend.
Do you know what? I get training from manufacturers' point of view. At the end of the day, we all want to sell products. But to me, it's you're better educating a smaller group every week or so, and they will buy your product, then spread the word. If you offer them good technical advice, good backup, decent training,
Yeah,
it'll grow. You don't want
and
to
I think that's what's going to support VDI moving forward. Okay, so I don't want to be too biased here. I don't think it's the right stand to take, but I think for VDI chemical free to become a thing, it's about training, isn't it? It's about training. It's about sharing the knowledge from good, bad, and indifferent. Let's face it, there are going to be some horror stories from chemical free because you get it all the time. It's how we learn from them, and it's the same with chemicals, same with chemical free. We've got a lot of understanding in Europe. We've got to tap into that market as much as we can as well. I'm just seeing some of the chats, and I think we don't always do things the right way in this country. I look at heating systems where people have thermostats turned up to 35 degrees and windows open. We just dump water without thinking about it. We've just got to get a little bit better at what we're doing, I think, in everything, and tighten the legislation, but bring in legislation and standards that actually mean something, and they're not, like you say, Rick, a tick box or because someone may potentially have ulterior motives. I think it's really important that the industry moves forward, and that all of the information is available for people to make their own choice. I think that's the biggest thing. We don't want it rammed down our throats. I think we're sick of that from everything else that happens in our walks of life. People want to be able to make their own choice, don't they? And I think it's about putting a viable conversation and option across to everybody, which I think there are both. Whether it will change, I think the sway will change over time. I think we're starting to see that. But I think there's certainly room for both at the moment. I think as technology change, as materials change, we as manufacturers get told a lot now what we can and can't put in materials, and that's going to have a big impact as well.
Yeah,
because of the way we're going on product sustainability and carbon footprint stuff. We have to change how we manufacture and what we use.
I get manufacturers contact me because obviously they hear what I sell and things like that, and they're all ready for the change. They've had component failures. Big boiler manufacturers are having massive failures.
It's huge.
They're understanding why they're getting failures, and it's lack of knowledge.
Yeah, some of the carbon steel projects I've worked on where carbon steel has just disappeared. It's crazy. Yeah. It's just.
And do you know what? A lot of it, like I say, the VDI is not just. It's not like you don't go buy a glass of VDI water. VDI is a document that supports expansion, other documents, and it's down to system.
I have read it. I wouldn't say I've read all of it, but I've read a lot of it. So
yeah, and a lot of my clients come off from the heat pump network. They're all trying to better themselves. They've grown big businesses now doing it like renewable energy.
Yeah.
So they're all trying to push efficiency levels, and they're not just putting small boilers on a wall for a few £100 a day. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're all pushing it, but they all go, oh, when you start training, we need this.
Yeah,
and I think it's all about the basics, isn't it? Like expansion vessel sizing, location, isolation valves, because we all know everyone sells these vessel robo kits where you can't isolate the vessel, so you can't service it, so you've got to drain the system to recharge the vessel every year. And people don't know about that. Well, why do we need to charge the vessel every year? It's like, well, it all comes down and it affects the
permeation of air,
pressure swings. It's all.
Yeah. There's so much to consider, and I think we've covered a lot today, and I'm very conscious of time, so I don't want to overrun. But yeah, I just really want to comments as well there from Jeff as well. It's training is massively important. I would never deliver training as a sales pitch. I'm not a salesman. I'm an engineer. I've been an engineer for 23 years. I'm not a sales pitch, and I think it's really important that when we do training, it is very much product focused, like it will be on chemical free chemicals, whatever it may be. So I do absolutely take on board the comments that it's down to us, all of us as an industry, to make it better, make the industry a better place, and that goes from chemical to chemical free to manufacturers to installers. I think we've all got a part to play. So yeah, Ella, I'll hand back over to you.
I was going to say, we've got some really insightful comments and questions to get through.
I'm trying to read as I go along, but he puts me off when I'm trying to read.
No, I know. Yeah, and I think, just off the back of the conversation we've had, I think with respect to training is that specification is going to be a key area that sort of perhaps sits between lots of different potential factions with different perspectives, but also buy-in from building owners, architects, anyone who is kind of involved from the design stage is going to need to be educated, not just on what it means for their role in these projects, but also for everyone throughout the supply chain and every stakeholder who could potentially be affected by this. But yeah, no, I was keen to, so from the beginning, we had a good or bad question that lends itself to, I suppose, conversation on how we feel about BS 8693 2025, the standard for water treatment for small volume or heating or cooling systems, and on the domestic side, whether we could comment on whether that is good or bad.
Rick, I know you're on these standards.
I've not seen that document, so
okay.
Domestic,
I've seen it mentioned, but it's not as prevalent as what I would say some of those 7593s. But I think it refers to systems. It's either 200, 250 litres, I think it is. So it's a smaller run system. Without reading it in its entirety, I wouldn't, I'd be sitting to difficult here and pass comment on it. But
yeah, I'm going to have a look at that now, actually.
Yeah, so. Listen, I think British standards, any standards are always put there, I'd like to think, for the right reasons. We have to have some kind of guidance and legislation to work to.
Yeah.
I haven't read that document's entirety, so I've seen snippets on because we get comments on different parts, so we have to go through it. But like I said, I think any kind of guidance standard that we have to work to is a good thing as long as it's written and implemented in the interest of the industry and not in a certain sector, if that makes sense.
And remains representative of where the industry
of everything. Yeah. A holistic approach and not one that is very much angled towards one side of the system.
The problem with these British standards, they need to be supported with the equipment or the knowledge to support the document. Like the British standard, everyone's selling chemicals that can't be tested for, but it says in section 10 to test it, commissioning every year.
Yeah. So there's confliction again.
The company like write the document to sit on the British standard, so that's just one annoying thing. That if you're going to tell an end user to do a job, with a kit, and I've seen it with boiler manufacturers. I'm not going to name them, but they promote a certain brand of inhibitor. You ring the inhibitor manufacturer up. I need the test kit for that. Oh, we don't sell them. We can't tell you what's in that. Well, why are we doing it?
Well, that leads nicely into our next question.
Their own chemicals and say test it every year and redose it whenever it's low, but you can't buy that inhibitor again unless you buy it with a boiler and a filter pack.
In terms of conflicts of interest, Mike Mann says there's too many manufacturers and suppliers that are cynically selling products based on their profitability or sales targets, as we know, but not technically correct or impartial advice. I think potentially that could lead into a wider conversation about standards and where the input is coming through.
Yeah, I think that's key. I think it's the input. It has to be if there are viable options, whether it's 1, 2, 3, or 2, 3, or 4 viable options, there has to be input from all of those parties that have got a vested interest, because otherwise there's not a level playing field, is there? Because it's still too far swayed to one side, and that's, I think, where we do see the conflicts at the moment is having people who sit there who understand as well. Not from I'm going to say from a commercial aspect, I mean from a sales aspect. We need engineers, we need people who truly understand the systems and the options to be able to give that independence or advice, I think, is probably the best way to put it.
I don't think you can actually ever get away from a conflict of interest, and I think as long as you declare your interest, then it comes down to the individual to determine to what level they are going to take the advice and go from there. But you just cannot get away from a conflict of interest. It's got to be declared. There's nothing you can do about that.
I think we have to. For us to get better as an industry, we have to have that impartiality, don't we?
Oh, yeah, but who do you? Unless, like you say, unless everybody is all singing from the same song sheet, then every manufacturer has got to agree, haven't they? And then it comes down to the individual's personal choice who they go with.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it does. It does. There's a lot going on, isn't there? Certainly.
I think to be an expert and to be familiar is to innately have an opinion, Mark. I completely understand, but any sort of standardization will affect different areas of the industry disproportionately. And there is potential that if the adoption of a chemical-free standard could perhaps affect, well, obviously the chemical market, but perhaps products that aren't necessarily ready to adopt these standards.
Yeah.
Where will that leave? Yeah.
We said before, as a manufacturer, we have to understand the complexities of water treatment and understanding how that impacts on, even just changing the pH or the acidity of a water or something can impact on components, and we just don't need to understand that. But that comes from chemicals as well. We have to work with labs and stuff as well to understand what's right.
That's the problem with the industry. No one understands water, do they?
Yeah.
But there's so much, isn't there? And how
Yeah.
You're trying to make a product that fits this much of a mantra when it can only do this much. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's difficult.
It's a tough
I
one.
think we have a comment from Matt Morse about how it is possible to test for biocides in the field, but only with the right kit. And it's, I suppose, like as you mentioned, Ricky, an issue of accessibility, or even being able to find out where that kit is sold.
Well,
If it's
my argument is if companies are selling a BS 7593 compliant chemical, they should provide a link to the test kit on that bottle or on their website. If they're selling the chemical saying it's compliant, they should provide a test kit for that bottle. And that's my argument with it.
Do
Agreed.
you think that should be mandated?
Well, it's simple. I know what 2 manufacturers have done it now since listening to my feeds and things. They provide a QR code. Not sure one of them's managed to get it from a bottle onto the QR code that you put on the boiler. So when the engineer goes to site and goes, right, I'll scan that. Oh, I need to get a molybdate test or a nitrate test or whatever test. It's a sticker and a link to a website. So if they're selling a compliant product, they should provide the kit, and that's because there's all test kits out there. Test kits. I've got a test kit that's nearly £3,000 that'll test for not biocide, but it'll test for a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
But which domestic engineer is going to go and spend £3,000 on a photometer and all his reagents just to go and service the boiler every few days?
Difficult, isn't it?
Yeah, plus the knowledge that goes with it, if you know what I mean.
It's like we said when we went back to saying to Mark stuff about it's time and investment from companies to be able to get up to a level of understanding, isn't it?
Yeah.
But that goes to compliance changing anything, doesn't it? When legislation, anything changes. Look at the change in heat pumps. You'd have said 10 years ago that every gas engineer would be trying to be a heat pump engineer. I said, no, you're mad. But we're seeing the change, aren't we? So
Yeah, everything's changing. It's slow, isn't it? That's why I don't ram the standard down everyone's throats and say you've got to do it. It's just if you want to adopt it and do better for your business, it's another option there.
Yeah, of course.
Because I do have customers that ring and say, I've had the failures after 6 months, 12 months. I've put this in it. I put that in it. I was like, well, did you monitor it? Has it been tested? And it's all down to, let's say, it's education.
Yeah. I think adoption creates quite an interesting case study where it's almost consumer buy-in has almost been prioritized across the market.
Yeah.
And they had to be seen to be believed. We had to prove, not just the sort of efficiency benefits, but cost benefits. Those had to be demonstrated to create buy-in. There had to be, a rollout of massive funding campaigns to even get people to consider it. And still now they are faced with, I suppose, questions about their, long-term benefits.
Yeah.
And it's, on one sense you're preaching to the converted, and in the other sense there is that if there's no incentive to move away from tradition, then the pace of adoption is slow. And I think the same, we're a lot almost further back with our appreciation for different approaches to water treatment, because as Mark says, it's always just been this way. And if there's any, no innate need to change it to protect your business, to protect yourself, especially as a small business, it will be people like yourself, Ricky, who are noticing a gap in the market for this kind of approach.
Everyone's just been doing the same since the 70s, haven't they? Since inhibitors came to the market, add a bottle, and it's just carries on. You're doing what you're told to do it. If you ask a plumber or a heating engineer why he's putting it in, I bet he's not going to give you the answer.
It might just be a case of, yeah,
because we've
in a
always
lot
done
of
it.
senses, that's what the consumer wanted.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Oh, you actually reminded me about something that I first saw when I was 16 years of age, coming in as an apprentice, and I asked why there was these two small jam jars in the stores, and one had a rusty nail in it and the other one had a clean nail in it, and it was part of the sales kit for a certain manufacturer, but it was these two little jam jars.
Oh yeah.
You remember that? And
you still do they still promote some
Yeah.
kids still have the nail test on it.
Yeah.
You old boys used to put ferroliquid in the systems, didn't you? I've spoke to a lot of older people. They said ferroliquid, alkali conditions works.
You know what? All the way through the 80s, I used to go out for a beer, and you'd be sat in a pub, and somebody at the bar would be saying, "Oh, well, if your boiler's noisy, yeah, oh, just put some ferroliquid in it. Oh, sorry, washing up liquid in it." And
other brands are available.
Down. Oh, I tell you,
We've probably just ruined the chemical market now. Everyone's going to be at Tesco getting ferroliquid.
Yeah.
And other brands are available, just in case you're not listening.
I only ever had one customer who put bleach in his system, and 6 months later we had to completely repipe it all.
We've had an interesting comment about obviously VDI 2035 being a German standard. It has been essentially embedded into many practices in their approach to water treatment. Mike Mann made a comment that in Germany you can't wash your car on your drive because of the pollution caused by cleaning, presumably with standard cleaning products. Therefore, the use of high quality car washes is pretty much universal there. But until the UK gets to grips with this mindset or a completely different approach to water treatment, that all runoff ends up in our drinking water. But he makes the point that a bit of fecal matter is at least biodegradable, but most chemicals are highly persistent and just wash through back into our drinking water. Yet the fuss is about sewage and biological contaminants. But I suppose where is the general understanding of the public of water treatment implications outside of raw sewage?
Well, this is it. I mean, I know there are legislations about soakaways and where stuff can drain to, but I think he's right. I think we are very lax in what we do. I do think we focus in the wrong places at times, and I think it's absolutely correct that until we add focus into all of what we do, that a lot of it does just become irrelevant because one will overcome the other. It's the way that we do stuff is just not always the best. We talk about being a licensed installer, but there's no real license apart from being gas safe. There's no real legislation about who you are as an installer. Whereas continental Europe and other places, you've got to be licensed. You've got to be ticketed to be an installer, and you can be held accountable. But where's the accountability in here? I don't think there is any.
There's nothing now, is there? No one checks anything.
No. I could go and buy a van tomorrow and set up as an installer. As long as I wasn't touching gas, it wouldn't be a problem. Which is mad, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
This was the avenue we were going down, and I was in a Teams call last night, all purely and simply for an hour or so, all based on license to practice and the sale of gas appliances to non-registered gas installers. And until the industry is licensed to practice, I don't think we are going to massively raise standards, unfortunately.
I agree. I do agree.
I think Stuart's made a really good comment about the need for quality assurance before we even get to site, which is seldom talked about. Made the point that the VDI standard relies on the robustness of the build and the commission, especially more stringent builds and commissioning steps that need to be in place to support the degradation of water. Without the assurance of quality at this stage, do you think he asks whether we're best to focus on industry training so a hybrid approach can be utilised, as chemicals are not always the devil.
I think there is, training is huge, and I think we've probably touched on it quite a lot in this conversation. It's certainly something that I'm passionate about in Altecnic as a brand, and I know that Ricky is as well. And yeah, listen, I think the key about it being hybrid system, there's got to be options. There's never going to be a one size fits all solution, and we have to accept that as an understanding. But as long as it's a level playing field, I think people will accept that better. And I think as long as all options are viable and are good for the system and not for someone's turnover, then and everybody has to make money, of course they do. But I mean, there's got to be a level playing field where the heart of the install and the install is what is the most important part of it, if that makes sense, to make the systems better.
Well, he makes the point that builds in the UK tend to be test install, usually with uninhibited water, and that then potentially leaves systems open to the air, vulnerable to degradation. Oxygenation is obviously a key point.
We see it in domestic systems. People will ring me saying, "Oh, I've had a load of radiators fail," and then you look back at the history. It's been like a newish build property when they've had the radiators on, for the plasterers off, for the decorators on, off, so they've just been sat there for weeks, months. Oxygen attacks them, the moisture inside hits the wells. But I have spoke to people over the past. A friend of mine was big in the commercial water treatment world, and he said he's seen catastrophic failures from them throwing systems online to test them, then taking them offline to finish the build, and then put them back online, and it's coming out everywhere because like low carbon steel is just destroyed, and it's cost like millions to replace some of these buildings.
Oh, it's horrific. Yeah.
Would you say that's where some reliance on chemical remediation comes from, is that the damage has already been initiated, so by that point it's sort of almost made it a chemical-free approach?
Yeah, I think some systems you will never get it back. It's just and it's down to education again. It should never have been fired up to that stand to go online with water in it. It should have been maybe pressure tested. But is how I see it. There's too many contractors involved in commercial. Do you know what I mean? I don't really understand it, but it's like one company wins that section, another does that, then they get somebody to do that, then they contract it out, and he does that bit. It's like no one seems to be in charge of it.
There's no consistency or continuity, is that's the problem?
No, and everyone passes the buck, don't they? It's like it was his fault, he done that, or that company done that bit, and it's not my fault because I didn't do that on that day. And
well, I think this is an age-old argument I've banged a drum about now since the late 70s, that the industry itself, across all the trades, when I say the industry, I'm talking about the building industry now. Across all the trades, every trade has been fragmented down. And when I came in, the skills that I had to learn as an apprentice plumber in the late 70s were far in excess of what they're trained and educated to deliver now. And everyone's in it for themselves, and nobody seems to consider long-term longevity of things and what is sustainable. They want to just achieve what they need to achieve and move on. And unless we get a greater professionalism and a lot more vigilance and a bit more due diligence when we're installing and doing work, then we're not going to advance from where we are now.
Do you say that's a sort of element that we need to factor into our approach to training as well? Is that it's
very much
just about technical capability and quality assurance, but balancing that with commercial viability, ensuring that you can set up a viable business no matter what you focus on, but with quality as the baseline?
It's got to be a case of, what can I do and how far can I exceed expectation, rather than what can I get away with. And I know, like I sound like I'm I'm criticising the industry. I think we've got a fantastic industry, and I think we've got some fantastic tradesmen out there.
You have to pop away for 1 minute.
Yeah.
No. Yeah.
You've seen firsthand that people are willing to adapt as well, Mark. I'm sure.
Oh, without a shadow of a doubt. And I have seen professionalism grow massively, and it's good to see, and it's very encouraging. But there are certain elements out there, no matter how much we bang the drum, they'll never change.
Yeah. I'd say trade associations definitely, from our perspective, even trade media are doing their bit to bang the drum, but in a way we might also be contributing to the fragmentation of the industry by trying to break down what each facet is responsible for, and how to ensure quality in your unique element. But I think it is about a collaborative approach across the supply chain, not just for the contractors that you do work with, but for the contractors that, you know, will come after you or who came before you.
Yeah, and make it accessible. You know, training stuff's got to be accessible. You know, you can't. If you get charged for it, you can't charge extortionate amounts. You know, you've got to. It's got to be something you're prepared to offer to what is doing. That's what we try to do. You know, we don't charge for our training, but we just want to try and make it a little bit better for everybody else. So
it's difficult as well, because I think there's more and more businesses now that are setting up to tackle the skills gap, or maybe even moving more into the training side of things, especially in the energy and renewables market as well. But it's about having, I think, that sort of hands-on expertise of, and people who have been on the tools, who have been engineers, who are formally and classically trained, who can give a different insight into the courses that newcomers are taking now.
Yeah, I think all avenues of life, there's a skill shortage, isn't there?
Yeah.
Undoubtedly. But
yeah, absolutely. Do you say so? We have another question about products, or even standard installation techniques, and what products or techniques should be used at a minimum to achieve chemical-free water treatment in commercial systems.
Rick,
Start with the test kit.
Yeah, I mean, there are companies out there that provide the equipment and the kit they need. I mean, from an actual perspective of ongoing system design, when the system, there shouldn't be any different as long as it's compatible with the the minutes flowing through. But from a making and filling perspective, there are companies out there that will provide the equipment that will do that, if that makes sense. So I think it's just important to follow those and follow the experts. We're not that. We don't provide that kind of equipment, but there's certainly a lot of companies out there that will do that. But from a design perspective, Ricky, you make it. I'm not sure there's a huge amount of difference when it comes to designing the system itself. The system is the system. It's just how you ongoing, flushing points, monitoring points, all that kind of stuff. That's what's really important. Where can you take your water from? Can you take it from multiple points of the system? All that kind of stuff. It's just important that you think about the ongoing maintenance and run of the system as opposed to the here and now. Can you still get the same amount of water from the same point in 10 years' time? You just got to think about that, haven't you?
Yeah.
And when it comes to commissioning these systems, can you perhaps, Ed, can you give a bit more insight into how these conversations sort of initially go?
What with commissioning the system itself?
Yeah.
The thing with commissioning systems is they all come online at different times. I was at a site yesterday where they've got a 26-story building. It's only occupied up to level 10, so they're trying to commission the first 10 floors, but they've got a system that's designed to work at a diversified load of 30% at 100% capacity. It's not running at that, but they're still trying to commission it. It's about doing the right things at the right time. If you're trying to dose a system, whether it be chemical-free, whatever, but you've only got a third of the system operational, but you put 100% of the chemicals in design, it's going to have an impact.
Yeah.
So, you've got to bring your buildings online at the right rate and in the right way. The comment about filling systems and leaving open to the elements. It's the worst thing you can do. People will put water system, do their watertight test, and they'll turn it off and drain down, whatever. If you're going to fill it, leave it. Do you know what I mean? Don't let it. I know you get issues with. Just make sure you put into your design stage and the commission stage. It's all just done at the right time and documented. and done the way it was designed to do. I once worked on a system in Leicester where this whole system designed to run chemical free, and they dosed it with chemicals, and the whole system fell over because of some of the components that they put in there. But that was a whole different story. But it's understanding the brief, understanding what's been put from specification stage at consultancy level all the way through to implementation and ongoing maintenance after that.
We have a comment from Kevin that flushing points are so critical in residential and commercial applications for future proofing, which is going to be key.
And understanding the journey of a building, you could work on a building that in 3 years' time has had offices put around it, or that pipework has become inaccessible and stuff. So it's understanding where the building's going to be in the future. Like I say, to be able to draw water off the same point is so important. But if someone there has boxed it in, or they put fan coils or something next to it, it's about understanding the whole system as a whole and its life cycle as well.
Yeah, future proofing is the key. Like, I've always installed flush points for years, and Mark probably sees this. If you can, you get a failure in a system, and you can go and quickly get your flushing kit on it and flush it out and rectify it. It's the key, really. Always think of the man going in behind you when you're installing, and that's the difficult part. Everyone's trying to install this beautiful systems, and they don't think of the service company going in to service it annually. Change components. Ideally, VDI talks about splitting systems off, valving everything off, so you don't need to touch that water. You can change all components within an apartment or a plant room without draining the system.
And that can, again, that's for me is key, is design and cost, because again, the site I was at yesterday, 26 floors, 25th floor yesterday, they had a blow off of a fitting. The only isolation they had for that 4-inch rise that went through 26 stories was in the plant room.
Really?
So they've got a drain, and it was just an absolute nightmare. Do you know what I mean? It's
what was that, mains water?
Yeah.
And that's
boosted. Yeah, boosted, but it's just about thinking practically, isn't it?
Yeah.
So they privately own
pressurization units with backflow prevention, leak detection, and dosing units all in one.
Pressurization units you got to be careful of with VDI.
Yeah.
Just because they need to be monitored, really, because if you start adding volumes of water into a system and it's going through resin, it can the resin can affect the quality of the water if it runs out.
Yeah.
So it's like I'd say any commercial, to me, it needs to be online monitored.
Yeah. Just
to stop any, and I don't know Ed sees that.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, we see so much now about remote monitoring online. It's a project that Clef you've been working on for some time as well. People, I'm not going to say be lazy, but people want to be able to sit in their offices in Birmingham and look at what's going on in the system in London, because it's easier and cheaper than putting a man in the van every day, isn't it? And it gives them an ongoing snippet of what's going on in the system. But the problem is with data, the data is only as good as what you're prepared to do with it.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're not willing to clean it,
if you're going to ignore it or not do anything with it, that's the important thing.
I think we've seen that in heat pumps as well, haven't we? Is that there's the need for the data, any sort of integration to kind of add value, but also prove its worth. But ultimately, if you're just letting that platform run and not actually interpreting the results or doing anything about the results, it's a bit.
Yeah, we all learn from data. And I think if, like, the online monitoring systems are linked to BMS systems commercially, so if something goes off, like if the conductivity of water increases, and then your pressurization units open up or whatever, add more water to the system, there's something's gone wrong, and whether you're going to send someone to site to look at it, that's the other issue, isn't it?
I suppose, like you say, it depends what you intend to do.
I see with VDI, everyone's scared of investing, but they're quite happy to pay for big call-outs every couple of months when something's failed. It's like, it's 6,000 quid for that call-out and that new pump group, or...
But it could have cost a couple of hundred quid to put a man in the van.
It's crazy.
It's wild. It is wild.
We have another question from Michael Dawson. He says, "Hi, I'm very new to water systems. Is it possible to run chilled, low temperature and high temperature hot water systems chemical free?"
Yeah, there's kit available on the market to do that. Our partners do a lot in that kind of systems, big commercial throughout the country, so they can help with that. Yeah.
Do you say there's sort of varied approaches to commissioning those systems?
Yeah, they can go out and commission them.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I say, I'm just mainly domestic, but our partners do all the commercial.
And that they'll have their own sort of commissioning documents and guidelines and everything in place to make sure those systems are, fully operational and as they should be, if you know what I mean. So that's it, isn't it?
That next one, existing systems be retrofitted. Yeah, anything can be, as long as it's flushed. Like I say, I'm not
going to say the key is flushing when you're going to change. I wasn't going to jump on your bone, but flushing it is so important.
Flushing it. Like commercially, they can clean systems off without properly flushing them. So they recirculate the water. So there's a lot. Is what I look at commercially is everyone's interested in capturing the debris, not preventing it.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, we've got this new filter, but why is that filter getting full all the time? There's a problem. Why that filter's getting blocked, and why are you pulling all this sludge out in fine filtration systems?
One of the biggest bugbears is we sell a huge amount of filters, but my thing is prevention. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Forget the maintenance, prevent it in the first place. They're not there to be emptied every month. They're there for to get split. Yeah. Ongoing.
That's why the market's gone with the boiler market, hasn't it? Because everyone's like, oh, we just put that in and fit a filter, and it's great because it protects the boiler.
Yeah.
But it's not, ideally flush it and not just put a filter on, flush it and you should be fine. Because now we're seeing filters coming to market smaller and smaller. Everyone was at like bigger filters, obviously the velocity changing a bigger filter, but now they're all trying to go under boilers, smaller room.
Yeah.
And the latest launch for the past couple of years, hasn't it?
I know we've got one, it's great.
It works though, doesn't it? If the system's clean, you shouldn't really need it.
Exactly. We're that confident it has got a glass front on it so you can see how clean your system is.
Yeah.
I think that's a really good example though of, even something as small component like a filter, if you're not educated on what are the implications, what does this mean, how is this going to change my approach, then you can sell the filter, but ultimately not solve any of the problems that the client might encounter.
There's a whole lot that goes with it as well. It's not just a filter, is it? You've got to understand why it's getting blocked and how much maintenance it needs, and there's a lot.
That's the last question about retrofitted cost effectively. That's all down to, have you got existing problems? How much is the maintenance costing you? The failures costing you money? So everything costs money, but you've got to look at, once you've done it, put the right kit in place, are you going to drive the cost down at the other end? And the answer is usually yes.
Yeah.
Michael, who can I speak to for more information? Well, I was going to say that leads us towards the end. We'll put, Ed, if you're happy to put your details in the chat for us to share. We'll share the recording of the webinar as well. We'll have an editorial summarising all of this out in the next issue of H&V News, which you can pick up to read more. But we will, Ed, we'll put your email in there now.
Yes, I've just dropped it in there. You've got it. Feel free to contact Altecnic, and thank you so much, everyone, for coming. Thank you to the speakers for going into so much detail as well. And I'd like to think this has been a nice sort of introduction, but has actually raised a lot of the issues that we'll continue to have to discuss down the line as adoption grows, as barriers become more evident, and in our sort of eternal push for more training, better training. I think this is the first of many conversations about VDI 2035. It will be going on for some time, I can guarantee you that. Absolutely will. Yeah, absolutely will.
I was going to say, what do you think the timeline looks like right now, Ed? We've got time for one more question.
Wow. Listen, it will go as quick as we're prepared to adopt the change, and that's the biggest thing. And while there's still conflictions in standards, regulations, compliance, we're never going to move forward quickly. So I think it's about the right people lobbying in the right places to get the right legislation and best practices in place for it to be able to be implemented in a way where everybody gets a fair share.
Yeah, it's definitely a slow burn, but I'm sorry, as more data is coming out, people are getting to see case studies and things like that and realizing that landlords, building owners can save money after obviously a little bit of investment. And that's what everyone's scared of, isn't it? That the first initial investment.
Yeah.
CapEx and OpEx.
Yeah.
I think the more ways that we can prove that this can save money, particularly, but also save the environment.
Yeah,
Save.
and that's where more and more installs will come into fruition, because we can all look at Germany and Europe and look at what they do, but they do it completely differently. So yes, we've got some kind of understanding of data, but until we start doing some real hard yards over in here, we can.
The thing is, we're kind of brainwashed by the Germans, aren't we? I've spoke to the Germans; they still have a big market of disaster, and I was hiking them out with Mario in Croatia at the weekend and talking about the European markets he deals with, and they're the same as us, really.
Yeah.
Everyone's got their flaws, mate.
Yeah.
It's not about having no problems, it's about understanding what they are.
It's about how you deal with them, how you learn with them, how you move forward. That's
Exactly.
what I'll say.
Well, thank you everyone for joining us and for participating so much in the conversation. It's very much appreciated. And
No, thank you.
all.
Cheers. Thank you, everyone.